So much media, so little time. Who keeps track of it all? That would be me. This is Bob Andelman, and this is the Mr. Media Interview, recorded live on blogtalkradio.com on July 17th, 2008. Dennis Kucinich is a brave man. Whatever else you may think of the five-term congressman from Ohio's 10th District, only a fool would deny his courage in running for Cleveland City Council before he was 21, running and being elected mayor of that city when he was 31, and the fact that he is perhaps best known nationally for taking a crack at running for president in the Democratic primaries this past year and running well. Kucinich didn't win a lot of votes, but he made an impression with his passion and his forthrightness, and, you might say, went so far as to establish himself as a brand name of sorts, one that stands for the courage to speak your mind. Not coincidentally, he's written a book called The Courage to Survive that fills the rest of us in on a story, a life story, that only the people of Cleveland pretty much knew of before. Congressman Kucinich, welcome to Mr. Media.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. Like a lot of people, we kind of feel like we know you, having seen you in so many debates this past year.
Well, thank you. It's great to have this chance to be on your show and to discuss with you what's happening in our nation and the world.
Thanks. Well, let's start with your book. It presents a very personal side of such a public figure. I mean, there's some family of history of some physical and alcohol abuse, among other things. Did you ever think twice about publishing some of these details?
Not at all. I think it's, I'm very open, and I think that when you live openly, you live without fear, and it's a place I come from that includes all of my experience and everyone that I've been with or lived with in a compassionate way. It's about human experience, and if you don't judge yourself or judge others, and you just tell the story, it helps others to free themselves from their own inhibitions.
It's the experiences start with your birth, obviously, in 1946, I want to say.
Right.
To read about family life at that time, it comes off a little harsh, and some members of your immediate family come off rather cold and almost inhuman at times. But I'm thinking that they're probably not a lot different than their neighbors were at the time, and frankly, we could probably find plenty of similar stories today. It's not that different, is it?
You'd be surprised how many people come up to me having read Courage to Survive, and they say that it reminded them of the experience they had in growing up. I think people who came out of World War II, who saw combat, many of them felt a kind of being removed from, a lot of the emotional situations they were in, if only to protect themselves from the pain they felt when they were in combat. I think that the book is written in a compassionate way, and it's written openly, and I think it's not just a story of my family, but it's a story of families during that time and today. We lived in 21 different places. By the time I was 17, including a couple cars, we experienced eviction after eviction. I think there's a lot of people today who have experienced a great degree of social disorganization, and I think the great part about this story, and every word of it is factual, is that it shows that no matter what happens, you can make it, you can survive, and the core that runs through it all is love. It was the love of our family, of our parents for us, of our members of the family for each other, which really made it possible for us to be able to not just survive, but later on in life to actually thrive.
How much of your personal story, some of the detail that's here, was known to people who may have voted for you over all these years, from council to mayor to Congress, but maybe was not widely distributed until this book was published?
Listen, when I wrote that book, the aspects of that story, most of it was unknown. And I thought it was a time in life to just release the story, and there's it's just the beginning of getting a message out about one life and how any one of us can come from untoward circumstances and make a difference. But most of the information that was there had not ever been published ever before.
Now, how did your family and your close friends react to seeing that in print?
Well, the family, my brothers and sisters who experienced it with me, saw the recognition. They were there, and they know what we lived through. And friends who were there at certain points, they saw the authenticity of what was described. But others were surprised. Other friends of mine said, "Gee, I didn't know that. You lived in so many places and your family had so many ups and downs." But again, I don't see that we were so different than a lot of other people. It's just that because I achieved a certain amount of prominence in American public life, I was able to get the opportunity to tell my story, which many other people have experienced if you haven't heard their names.
I know a lot of people I've interviewed, from that era or other eras, frankly, maybe even going further back, have said, well, for one thing, we didn't know we were poor. That's just the way everybody was, and
That's exactly right.
Right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Well, I want to bounce around a little bit because there's a lot going on with you these days, and I know your time is limited. The big story, of course, at the moment is just this week you officially introduced articles of impeachment against President Bush and Vice President Cheney, and I've just got really one question about that. What took so damn long?
Well, I introduced articles of Mr. Cheney a while back. With Mr. Bush, the leadership had repeatedly said that the articles of impeachment were off the table, but I just decided, even if it meant defying the leadership of the House of Representatives, that I had to bring forth such articles, and I had to create the discussion about the breach of the Constitution, the destruction of the rule of law, and the lies that took us into Iraq. So in doing that, what's happened as a result is that now the Judiciary Committee, for the first time, is going to hold a hearing at which I'll be presenting my articles of impeachment, and to not only talk about the matters that Congress should be looking at with respect to the conduct of the administration and this war that we're in, but also to talk about a path forward. What can we do now that we're in this mess that we're in that has so damaged our country's spirit and our troops, the people of Iraq, and the world.
Now, do you really believe that in the 100, I guess I'm going to guess here, I think it's about 180 days left. I actually saw it in a New York storekeeper's window last week. I think it was 190 days and so many hours and minutes, but probably about the 180s now. Do you actually believe that impeachment can happen, or is there some other purpose for doing this at this time?
Well, the leadership of the House has been more than reticent about impeachment, and so I don't have any illusions about whether there's going to be an impeachment voted on by the House of Representatives. But I think that we'd have to know the truth of what happened. Simply because there's an unwillingness to impeach shouldn't mean that there would be an unwillingness to know the truth. And so I'm interested in getting the truth out. That's number one. Number two, we need to hold this administration in check as they're on their way out the door. This president should not be held harmless for his conduct that took us into a war. His conduct will have to be appraised long after he leaves office, and he has to be subject to prosecution by U.S. and international courts with respect to his decision to take us into a war based on lies. Furthermore, we have to let the next administration know that it cannot go forward and violate the Constitution with impunity. And so that's something that, those are all matters that need to be regarded in terms of proceeding with an impeachment discussion. And then there's something beyond that, and that is we need a process of truth and reconciliation in America. We have to go beyond just impeachment and talk about what can we do to heal the breach that's been created in this country because of the way the nation handled, the leaders handled the response to 9/11, and because of this war in Iraq and pending wars against Iran and other places.
And I have to admit, I, like the president, lied. I actually have another question or two about impeachment. Is the issue that, I mean, I've maintained since before the man was elected in 2000 that he shouldn't have been elected because he just was not terribly bright. And I'm wondering if we've been led down this path simply because he's just, well, I want to watch my words here. The word that comes to mind is idiot, but I want to stick to not very bright.
No, I think that's a myth that has been created. It's very dangerous and needs to be addressed in a direct way. This president is intelligent. He has a real ability to grasp things within his immediate sphere. He may lack the long-term judgment that's necessary in someone who is expected to protect the fortunes of a great nation. But he is intellectually competent. There might be some questions about his emotional responses as to whether or not he really emotionally registers the calamity that he's brought on this country and the world. But those who think that he is stupid, that's too easy to just dismiss a person. You cannot do that. He has a certain amount of intelligence that brought him to become a governor and to become a U.S. president. I mean, the American people voted for him. I don't think you can discount him that easily. Now, so that's not a defense. The real thing is that he, for whatever reason, decided that it was he was so interested in getting Saddam Hussein that the truth didn't matter. It's people. Any one of us might be subject to a flaw that could be the type of hubris that could destroy us, and I think that's what's happened to President Bush, but with great consequences to our country.
I don't want to linger on this, but I respectfully disagree. I don't think he's terribly bright at all. I don't think there's anything in his history to indicate that he's very bright. I think he was elected because there was a certain group of more powerful, smarter people who felt that this was someone that they could put in that office and control, because someone who was bright would look at his own record and say, I haven't accomplished a damn thing in 8 years that's positive for anyone but big business and people already in government. And that kind of leads to the other question I was going to ask you is, why has this guy, of all people, of all presidents in the 20th, now 21st century, why has this guy gotten a free ride from Congress and the judiciary and pretty much every element of government? Why this guy?
Well, I think this is more of a comment on the decisions by the Democratic leaders as it is a comment on this president. Our Democratic leaders have to take responsibility for the decisions that they made that have permitted this president to escape the sanctions under the Constitution. This is a problem. This is a crisis in our democracy right now. And so what I hope to do is to enable my Democratic colleagues and members of Congress generally to have the opportunity to reassert the primacy of the Constitution, reassert the rule of law, and to bring this administration to an accounting. The committee process, which is going to begin next week, is just, is a beginning in doing it, and I think it'll be healthy.
Would you consider pursuing legal issues against this president and vice president after they leave office in January?
Well, I think the law makes it very clear that it's not about what I want to do. I mean, it's what's the law? The law says that once they leave office, they're subject to prosecution. There's just no question about it. And so, if there is a prosecutable offense, they can be prosecuted when they leave office.
But that, realistically, that almost never happens.
I wouldn't be so sure that it wouldn't happen. I mean, there
really?
were people in Chile over 30 years ago who probably thought that there would never be any justice for what happened to Salvador Allende. But when we saw that Pinochet was placed under arrest, suddenly that all changed. The world changes. People take a look at things from the relief of time that caused them to estimate matters that perhaps they weren't ready to act on when they were in process, that they might be ready to act on from the safety of time and distance. And so, yes, I would expect that at some point, not only George Bush but Richard Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, and all of those who participate in that decision-making process at a high level will be subject to a legal process somewhere down the road. I don't think they can escape it. I think that the movement of the world in a direction towards justice will bring, yes, even people who are high positions in the United States government before the bar of justice.
Well, I mean, until this administration, I always believed that to be possible and to be the case. But correct me if I'm wrong. I can't think of a precedent where an ex-president of the United States, not another country, but an ex-president of the United States, has actually been brought to justice and gone through the process. It seems to me that the gentleman's club of ex-presidents has always stood in the way of that happening.
I'm predicting it will happen, and it'll happen in our lifetime.
And are you predicting that you will have a hand in seeing that it happens?
Look, it's not about whether it isn't about me in the least way. I mean, I
understand, but someone has to be out front.
Am I going to let things slide here? Absolutely not. But there are many other people who are concerned about this, and I think we have to show a confidence that truth crushed to the ground will rise again, that justice will prevail, that there will not be a point where someone who has roundly violated U.S. international law and human rights will be able to escape unscathed. I think there's going to be an accounting, and I think it'll be in a legal process, which is where it should be. So yes, I think that there will be justice, whether it's administered by the House of Representatives or not, is another matter.
Okay. Let's, if you have another moment or two, let's change gears a little bit.
I just have another moment. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, what can you tell us about Barack Obama from your many months alongside him on the campaign trail? What insight can you give us about the man?
He's very bright, and I think that he's obviously quite skillful.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we'll see someone who's basically going through a process of growing right before our eyes, and that's we want our candidates for president to have the capacity for growth.
Did he treat you with respect on the road as?
Absolutely, always.
Yeah.
No question about it. He was always. We had and have a very cordial relationship. I felt that right from the beginning.
Hmm. Is he the real thing that people talk about in politics?
Well, I mean, that's too clipped an assessment. I think that he's quite complex, and we have to get more of an opportunity to see him in action as a candidate in a general election, and we'll learn more.
Hmm. Last question, and I'll let you go. You've been very gracious with your time. I'd like to tell my 12-year-old daughter that things will get better under a new president, any new president. Am I wrong?
Well, I think that we have to be careful in telling our children fairy tales. Because the mythologies that we live with sometimes imprint themselves quite mightily. I think the most important thing to tell our children is that we love them, and not that their lives depend on who the President of the United States is. Because, the President does have great sway over describing the social, political, and economic circumstances under which we live, and can be instrumental in providing for the peace of this country. Each of us has a journey that requires us to be as presidents of our own lives, to have a sense of agency and authority, authenticity, and power that derives not from who happens to be holding a particular office, but that derives from an inner sense of being that comes from being loved and supported. And so I'm hopeful that our government will move to a position where we stand for the truth, where we stand for restorative justice and peace and reconciliation, which will create for our children a world where they can grow up in love and with courage.
Okay. Well, folks, to learn more about Congressman Dennis Kucinich, check out his official government website at http://kucinich.house.gov. You can also read more about the latest on the articles of impeachment there. You can also buy his new book, The Courage to Survive, at bookstores everywhere, as well as on MrMedia.com or Amazon.com. Congressman Kucinich, thank you so much for joining us at Mr. Media today, and hope maybe you'll consider coming back sometime.
Truly, let's do this again. Okay?
That'd be great. Thank you so much.
Bye now.
Bye-bye. All right. Well, for dozens more celebrity and media newsmaker interviews, surf over to our main website. That would be at www.mrmedia.com. That's where you can listen to my conversations with the stars, writers, and producers of Curb Your Enthusiasm, Army Wives, 24, The Big Bang Theory, Pearls Before Swine, Tell Me You Love Me, The Dark Knight, and other political interviews that you'll find there. And please think about writing an online review of Mr. Media, casting a vote for Mr. Media, or marking Mr. Media as one of your favorites, whether you listen on Blog Talk Radio, Digital Journal, Blueberry, Zencast, Odeo, or iTunes. And folks, as always, thanks so much for taking a piece of your day and sharing it with us. I really appreciate the time that you give, and I know it's valuable, and we hope to make it useful.